Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Oh, well, Conrad, I'm great. I'm coming to you directly from Jacksonville Beach, Florida, the site of my second home. People said, you bought a place in Florida? Yeah, I don't want to stay in a hotel. And it's a good investment. On the beach is always a good investment.
Always.
I've been told that by real estate guys much smarter than I. So I like it, and it's relaxing. I don't even wear my watch down here.
Really?
I don't care what time it is. It's just a relaxing and a great way of life. And so, but I'm not selling my home in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's still going to be home, but I'm going to stay here a lot. And so I'm enjoying that. I'm getting used to where the grocery store is now, closer to where I live, things like that. So, but it's a fun little adventure. It's a fun little adventure. And, I've done everything from pick out bathroom towels to, can openers and, and flooring and things that I don't do.
Right.
But thank God I got a good team that's running it. And my lady Linda is, she's about my age, and she's been doing this for years and years. And she was highly recommended by the Jaguars and some of the AEW executives that have used her services before. So yeah, I didn't come into it cold turkey, but it's been a fun experience. It's kind of like starting all over. And, maybe if I had done this sooner after Jan got killed, it would take my mind off of that misery a little quicker, not totally, but a little quicker. And because you're surrounded by, when I look out my bedroom, my master bedroom, and my living room windows, you see nothing but sand and the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
And for some reason, I think I missed this to you last time we chatted. Since I was a kid, that was always been a dream. And I use the illustration of the old Jack Lord, Book 'em Dano, Hawaii 5-0. But that lifestyle has, for some reason, for a kid from the hills of eastern Oklahoma, has always appealed to me. I can't explain why. It's just peaceful, easy. It's that Great Eagles lyric.
Yep.
Peaceful, easy feeling. So I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited about our shows, and we're doing great. I certainly want to thank all the fans for supporting what we do, especially on the ad-free network, which is the way to go. You get so much content, so early, so timely. It's not even funny. So if you want to study the business or learn about the business or hear some of these great classic stories, ad-free network is the way to go. So, but any form you get us, Conrad, I know you feel even maybe more so because you're so more deeply invested. We appreciate the business. As simple as that. We thank the fans. We appreciate your business, and we're going to try to earn your business every single week.
We are indeed. And today we're going to try to earn it when we're talking about one of the all-time greats. You want to talk about rarefied air? I don't know that there was a bigger talent that ever went through professional wrestling than Bobby Heenan. The guy could do it all. And we're going to pay homage to him today. This is, going to be a great show. just because we've got a great all-time talent. And I think the thing he's most synonymous with this show already is you talked about, you know, when you first went over to the WWF, you developed a kinship with Bobby, and you sort of made a reference to the chocolate cake once upon a time. And man, our fans just latched onto that.
Yeah. T-shirts and I get a lot of feedback on Twitter at JRSBBQ. Can't answer everybody's responses, but I try to interact as best I can. But it's just funny how things like the push and things like the chocolate cake, I can't tell you how many Under the Black Hat books that I signed that had one of those two cliches, phrases in them. So they kind of hooked up, and we'll talk about the origins of that and how it played a role in Bobby and me. It sounds more salacious than it is, but people will understand thoroughly once we get to that point in the story. But Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon, and Mean Gene were the three talents that really embraced me coming to WWE in '93. And they were the vast minority because I was still looked at as the, pardon me, the voice of WCW, the enemy, blah, blah, blah. And could I be trusted, or had I paid my dues? Because a lot of guys didn't know my background.
Right.
And of course, you know, when I got to WWE in '93, I'd been in the business for 19 years. I wasn't some new kid on the block, just fell off the watermelon truck, and here he is. So that was the thing that's how Monsoon convinced and Bobby not so subtly. Monsoon very forceful but succinct, convinced guys like Lord Alfred Hayes, who I'd never worked with, ironically enough, in the territory era. I was very familiar with his work because where I lived in eastern Oklahoma, we got I think a station out of Joplin, Missouri that covered or somewhere in that neighborhood that covered Central States Wrestling, and Lord Alfred was a big star there at one point in time. He was a hell of an underrated talent, Lord Alfred Hayes. Great heel, really, really a great heel. So, but Bobby was there, and then I replaced Monsoon, and to become Bobby's partner. Which, if you think back at it, and I know this is how I would be, if when somebody replaced Lawler, for example, with me, I didn't like it.
Right.
Because we had timing, we had rhythm, we had reps, we were worked a lot together, and so it was an easier gig for me. You know, doing live commentary is not easy.
Right.
You're ad-libbing for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, and that goes. It's not. Don't be confused by, well, Vince was in your ear telling you what to say. Well, he was in our ears telling us what to say at certain points in time. But the vast majority of the time, when Lawler and I worked together on Monday nights, it was a 2-hour ad lib with some structured points in it. Unfortunately, at times, bad timing. Vince never gave us real bad information, but it was just at the wrong time, I thought, and so did Lawler. So, but working with Bobby, I'm replacing one of the most beloved characters behind the scenes in the whole history of WWE.
Right.
Bob Morella, Gorilla Monsoon. Everybody loved Gorilla. Mm-hmm. So I was filling some big shoes, or trying to, and if it had not been for Bobby's willingness to give me a chance for us to be given a chance to interface and to develop our timing, none of that shit would have ever happened. So I really owe Bobby a big debt there, and of course Monsoon and Gene. Unfortunately, all three of my friends there are gone, but their memories aren't. And so we'll certainly try to relive some of those today with this Bobby Heenan story.
We're doing Bobby's story today because unfortunately today's a sad anniversary. We lost Bobby today, 3 years ago, September 17th, 2017. It was unexpected to say the least. I mean, obviously he had some health challenges, and we'll get into that, but you just assume a guy like Bobby, I don't know why, but he's one of those guys you just think will always be there. At least I did. And then we got the tragic news of his passing. But let's think about happier times to get our show started. The first time you meet Bobby Heenan, do you remember when that was?
Yeah, 93. The week of WrestleMania 9 in 93, I flew to Stanford to do some voiceovers for Wrestling Challenge. That was one of the syndicated shows. Superstars was the A show, much like when I started in it with Crockett. Worldwide was the A show. Bob Caudle and I did the B show, which was NWA Pro. I had the same basic role in WWE of being on the number 2 syndicated show, and of course my partner Monsoon worked with me for a long time, but Heenan was the guy that's when I started. So I met Bobby the week of WrestleMania 9, and we did voiceovers that were going to air after WrestleMania, which is a challenging little piece of business because things can change. So you've got to be somewhat specifically generic.
Yeah.
Without it sounding generic, Conrad, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Bobby and I did, I think we did, I want to say 3, but at least, I know we did more than one a show.
So let's talk about that. Your first time meeting Bobby, I guess I just assumed, because wrestling is such a bubble, that you would have, crossed paths with him sometime before, but he was never in a territory even briefly when you were. He was never passing through or anything like that.
No, Bobby at one point was certainly not looking for work very, very, very often.
Right.
He was, Bill Watts knew Bobby well and enjoyed being around him because Bobby entertained people. He was an entertaining guy. And, but Bill met Bobby at working for Vern Gunny in the AWA. So, but he never worked Mid-South. He obviously didn't work for Crockett, didn't work for WCW until later on, and I'd already been gone a long time. So our paths never crossed. Now, everybody that I met in the territory days that had come through AWA, for example, and knew Bobby, had Bobby Heenan stories.
Right.
Because he was a very polarizing individual, more on the positive side than the negative side, unless you go on the wrong side of him, then he could, drive you crazy. That didn't happen to me, but, some guys are, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a cause. But everybody I'd say 90% of the guys that talked about Bobby Heenan were laughing when they were telling a story. He entertained people. He was just irreverent. He was mischievous, had a gleam in his eye. And even though he only had an 8th grade education, which is pretty damn amazing when you put it in context.
Yeah.
For a guy to rise to the top of his profession and start making really big money, or good money for sure, then with an 8th grade education, it's pretty astonishing. And it shows all of us that if you have a goal, if you have a passion, if something you want to do badly enough, then it can happen. It can happen. It may not happen, as we all know, but it can happen. So with a faint chance that it could happen, then you maintain your journey. You maintain stepping toward that destination. And that was Bobby all along. I know what Bobby was telling me about when we first got in the business. Dick the Bruiser was a notorious bad payoff guy, according to the guys. I referenced a couple of Dick's matches in Mid-South and bounty matches and things. So I didn't know Dick the Bruiser very well. I always thought Dick the Bruiser was a porn star. But,
Let's talk about Bobby. You, even though you hadn't met him, you'd certainly heard of his work. Where you lived, did you get TV where you could keep up with what he was doing, or did you just see him in the old magazines?
Well, I saw him first with those bloody pictures in the covers of magazines.
Right.
To be honest with you. And then when Bobby got on national cable, which was early on in that whole landscape, I watched all the wrestling I could consume. And certainly the things that he was doing in WWF at the time was, I thought, just brilliant. I thought then, I said, I don't think I've ever heard a better talker, more all-around entertaining talker whether he wants to deliver you humor or venom, he can do either one equally as well. So yeah, I followed him on cable. Cable TV was getting to be a big deal, and I was lucky that I was able to get cable TV, and after I got out of high school and I moved away from home, and primarily, to be honest with you, the cable TV was especially attractive because it had wrestling on it, more wrestling.
Sure.
It had the Von Erichs on it, and it had out of Dallas, I think Channel 11, if I'm not mistaken. That was a good Saturday night's 2-hour wrestling show. We had the USA Network, which had a lot of Joe Blanchard stuff early on. And of course, the staple was TBS, was the benchmark. So all those venues afforded me the chance to watch a lot of product, see a lot of talent, see what I thought was working. What interested me? What did I think as a fan that would make me want to tune in again the next time this product was offered? And that's the real key. It's still the key thing. It's a key thing in all TV that's produced episodically. What happened on this episode that's going to motivate me to join in again next week? So through that process, Conrad, of being a wrestling nerd, so to speak, or maybe not so to speak, I got to see a lot of talents, but Bobby Heenan always stood out.
Right.
He always stood out. And on the rare occasion that he was a performer, a wrestling type performer, or he was in the ring, I said, this guy's as good as any heel that's on the show. And he's the manager.
Right.
And then you go peel the onion back a little bit, and you find out, how Bobby started. Bobby was never trained. Bobby didn't go to a wrestling school.
Really?
Bobby was not in the territory system. He picked all this stuff up on his own. And then he had Dick the Bruiser, who Bobby was a glorified gopher for, who was the owner of a territory in Indianapolis where Bobby was living. And, he was entertained by Bobby. Bobby's name was Ray. And so when Bruiser called him the first time, or they'd met and so forth, said, hey, Bobby, come on down to the TV studio on Tuesday to do some interviews. So Bobby was all worried about that. I think that call happened over the weekend, that that Bruiser had called the wrong guy. He was intending to call somebody named Bobby because my name is Ray.
Right.
It's like that Geico commercial when she says something about Bigfoot. My name is Daryl. That commercial about what do you call that? The alleged
the Sasquatch.
Yeah. That guy looked like some of the Hebner's girlfriends. But Bobby, well, maybe a little less chin hair, or maybe not. So Bobby was all concerned that Bruiser had called the wrong guy.
Right.
And so the rationale behind that was the fact that a lot of the guys in that Dick the Bruiser's younger era were marks for Buddy Rogers, and for good reason. Buddy Rogers was the Ric Flair of his generation. Mm-hmm. And so he could make anybody look better than they were. He had a bigger than life personality. If you go back and watch a lot of old Buddy Rogers, you'll see a lot of the later on Ric Flair, the feel, not quoting quotes and doing, and he may have done that, Nate may have done that early on, but Buddy Rogers was a big influence to Ric Flair and a lot of guys. He was the first guy to do, I was always told this, that Buddy Rogers was the first guy to do multiple high spot sequence, arm drag, leapfrog, drop down, tackle, arm drag, drop kick, false finish. Things like that, not to that exact, but things along those lines, just trying to make a point. So Buddy influenced a lot of the way guys wrestled. And so Dick the Bruiser was a mark. And Dick the Bruiser knew that Buddy Rogers had a manager named Bobby Davis. So for whatever reason, when Bruiser first met Bobby Heenan, they're in their community there in Indianapolis, he reminded Bobby Heenan reminded Dick the Bruiser of Bobby Davis, so hence the name Bobby. Now, Bobby didn't get the name the Brain until he went to, I think he got that in AWA. So he became Bobby the Brain, and it worked. I mean, what a great name.
Oh, tremendous.
But he said, but like I said, he was, my name is Daryl. His name was Bobby. His name was Ray. But I never called him Ray or Raymond once. I saw in a check one time, it was Raymond Heenan. I said, I didn't know your name was Raymond. And then he makes a joke about it and moves on. But I don't know that anybody in his life, even his lovely wife Cindy, called him. She always called him Bobby. So he was always Bobby to me, and he'll always be Bobby.
Well, let's talk about, you said you first saw him on the magazines when he was all bloody. That's when he was, I assume, when he was working. But by the time you're actually watching him on cable, you're seeing him in a manager capacity. And then, of course, you have your run through WCW. And when that's happening, of course, he's on the big program for the WWF. And then you finally get the opportunity to work with him. You get called up and get the big gig. And here we go. It's WrestleMania. And I know we've talked about that a little bit before, but let's just briefly touch on it again. You didn't just walk in and everybody was excited to see you, and you had to go through a bit of an acclimation process. And one of the folks who helped make that a lot easier was Bobby Heenan, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Bobby again was like Monsoon, a folk hero within the annals of the TV studio there at 120 Hamilton in Stamford. Bobby, like Monsoon, as I mentioned, was a very beloved character. Mean Gene, throw him into that mix too. So the crew can make or break you. And so Bobby was the icebreaker. Bobby's got a new partner, this guy from WCW. I was just the guy from WCW. I wasn't JR. I was just Jim Ross.
Right.
Good old JR generic guy. But the thing about it, again, was that what Bobby respected about me was we had a lot of the same parallels. It's funny, Conrad, a lot of these talents that we've talked about on these shows and your other guys have talked about on their shows, it's funny what the common denominator amongst many of them are, and that is the fact that their fandom started when they were kids. And they have grown up for whatever the affection, the affinity for pro wrestling. That's certainly how I was. I got to watch 1 hour a week, syndicated out of Tulsa. And if I did my homework and I did good grades and I did everything my old man wanted me to do, chore-wise, I got rewarded. I got to watch an hour of wrestling and an hour of roller derby. They played back to back. That was a big thing for me. And I can't tell you why. It was just a natural attraction that drew me to the genre. And Bobby Heenan was the same way. Bobby met a wrestler that was going to be on one of Bruiser's cards, and the guy got him some tickets for the TV, I think it was, in Indianapolis. And so I think he got friends with the disc jockey there in Indianapolis somehow. And so, Bobby and his buddies got to go to some wrestling matches, and he said that hooked him. At that point, he was past the point of no return. He loved it on TV. He's like me. He watched it on black and white television once an hour a week. But when he got to go see it live, which I didn't get to do, but I mean, rarely. I think I went to one spot show about 15 miles from where I grew up at the high school gym. And I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I thought my mother and my aunts, my relatives, female relatives, none of the men went to wrestling. Because that shit's fake, right? Yeah, kid, I know, Dad. I got it. Okay, I don't think it's fake. Let me like something, And so they went, I found out the backstory. The main reason that my mom and all of her lady friends who were willing to go to the wrestling with me was the fact that this guy named Jerry Kozak was on the card. And Jerry Kozak was a very handsome, well-built, not grotesquely muscled, but looking great, but really a handsome guy, like a movie star look. And his brother Nick and he were tag team partners for a long time. But Jerry Kozak was a matinee idol-like guy back in that era in the 60s. And so they went to see Jerry Kozak, I found out years later, not to be the benevolent of aunts and moms and so forth to take me to wrestling matches. That was my one and only live match until I actually got out of high school. was in college, and I met Cowboy Bill Watts and Leroy McGurk. I saw one live match, but it meant something to me. And Bobby was the same way. I think he when he went and got those free tickets, and it hooked him. So anyway, Bobby did a lot of stuff. He was entertaining. He had a very entertaining. Bobby managed a rock band. Bobby was trying to be a promoter when he was a teenager. Whatever he could promote, whatever he could sell a ticket for, he was into that. So it was that whole facet of pro wrestling. Whereas the more tickets you sell, Conrad, the more money you make. Bobby had that philosophy early on, just naturally, without any explanation.
It's so remarkable to think about everybody's story and how they got into this. And to your point, Bobby did discover wrestling when he, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, and fell in love and was enamored. But what I think is most interesting is, the background from the family side, that then somehow out of that rises a big star. And Bobby's is a little unique. He's raised by his mom and his grandmother, because I think his dad checked out when Bobby was very, very young. Do you think that influenced the way he handled his business and carried himself? I mean, it had to, right?
I think absolutely. Good point. I think that everybody in the performance arts that I've ever met, and that includes pro wrestling, obviously, but the actors I've met over the years, the singers, entertainers, there's always you can always distinguish their varying levels of insecurity because they work in a very subjective business. If you're a singer and you have a hit record, you can't live forever on that one hit. You might perpetuate. You might play a small casino, or something like that with your one hit, but you got to have some body of work. And the thing that makes the body of work successful is how it's judged, and it's judged by what you sell, records you sell, tickets you sell, what have you. Same thing in NFL. You got to be productive. And now with so much data and stats available, watching some sporting events this weekend, you find out that the data, one of the things that Tony Khan's so proficient at is there's so much data available now. So, but there's a lot of ways to judge, and there's a lot of ways to fail, and which is always underscored. But Bobby, I think, the insecurities at times and his mood swings at times were created. The foundation for that was made when he was a kid. He didn't have a father figure in the home, as you mentioned. His mom and his mother's mother, his grandma, they raised him. Hell, Bobby, I said earlier, Bobby got an 8th grade education. He quit school in the 8th grade to work to help support the family. That was think about that in today's world.
Right.
And I know that we know that it happens, Conrad. We know that it still exists, maybe not as prominently as it did in Bobby's 8th grade generation, but he did all kinds of jobs. So he used to talk about, he's an usher at a theater. He worked at a hardware store. You can imagine that. He worked at a department store. He was a milkman. He was a car jockey at a Ford dealership. And so he had all these different jobs, but he had to go to work to buy groceries, to eat, to pay the rent. So he grew up in a very hard scrabble, challenging way. That those challenges did two things. To answer your question, yes, it affected how he looked at some certain topics or how it affected his moods, in both positively and negatively.
Right.
Because Bobby didn't know how to fail, because he didn't have an option, Conrad, when he was in the 8th grade or 9th grade. He had to get up and go to work because mom and grandma had to eat, and they had to keep a roof over their head. So he knew what challenges were, and he knew that he was not the kind of guy that was going to quit his journey.
It's so remarkable to think that, he starts there, and then we know he's going to become, one of the central figures during the real boom era of professional wrestling, at least for the World Wrestling Federation. When you look back, sort of before you worked with Bobby, I mean, he had so many big moments, but was there any bigger than the whole WrestleMania 3 build when he managed Andre against Hulk Hogan?
No, couldn't have been. Nothing came close in my estimation. I remember Bobby. I think that was the event that he was paid $100,000 because I believe it was that event, but Vince gave him a check for 100 grand for his work. And Bobby took it and bought a home in Florida. So, he was as silly as he could be, as funny as he could be, irreverent as he could be. He still had his eye on the prize. He knew that having a home, having a family unit was hugely important. So, Bobby was one of those guys that was always ready to go home because he loved the fact that he finally now had, a solid foundation in his home life. His wife Cindy's a wonderful woman. They had a daughter, Jess. They do well. I'm on Facebook with them, for what that's worth. But we keep up with each other in that manner. But she's a wonderful lady, and so Bobby loved that lifestyle. He loved being a father. He loved being able to provide. But I thought it was very. Whereas a lot of guys will go out and buy them another Rolex, or buy their baby mama another set of boobs, something like that, Bobby bought a home. So he was very grounded in a lot of ways, even though his on-screen persona was one of this mischievous, funny guy that had this amazing gift of gab. So, and he did, boy. I've always said, Conrad, and I really believe this, and this is not taking away from anything from my other broadcast partners whatsoever, or knocking anybody else maybe I didn't work with. But Bobby Heenan was the best all-around performer in pro wrestling that I ever worked with, period. And he was, if you go back and look at some of his in-ring work, he was a very, very good heel. Mm-hmm. Main event level heel, Conrad, because he had amazing timing. Again, for a guy who picked it up naturally because he was not trained. How he could even survive going through that is amazing to me. I know he told me that when Bruiser smartened him up, that he said, if you tell anybody, I'm going to break both your arms, both your legs, and your back. And then when you heal, I'm going to break them again. Well, that's a pretty menacing warning. We believe in the kayfabe and not speaking of what really goes on in this process. So even though people had a great feeling and could kind of use common sense, but they didn't know the intricacies. They didn't know all the process. Whereas now, if you're a real fan, you're a fan of the Ad-Free Network here, or Grill and JR, so forth and so on, and other entities like this, you know a whole lot more than any other generation in the history of pro wrestling. And that really did not bode well for a lot of the old timers, including Bobby.
By the way, the house you talked about that he bought off of his WrestleMania 3 payoff, I believe that's the one where they did a lot of the photo shoots down there, like the famous one with Ric Flair and Miss Elizabeth, where it was the whole scandal of, hey, Rick was with her before Randy was, and they did those series of photos out by the pool and things like that. That's all at Bobby's house. The vignettes where Dusty Rhodes is going to fix the plumbing when they're introducing him as the common man, those series of vignettes, those two are in Bobby's house in Florida, and all of that purchased with the WrestleMania 3 payoff. So obviously, Bobby is going to feel a debt of gratitude to Vince, because that's major league payday, the biggest payday of his life. I mean, it's the first time that he really felt like, and he's gone on record as saying, my financial future was solidified, and it was all from that one event. I mean, I don't know that we now, cause listen, I'm 39. When that show happened, I was 5 years old. I wasn't even watching wrestling, but as a 5-year-old, you couldn't really fathom just how big WrestleMania 3 was. But WrestleMania 3, I mean, the entire industry took notice of, my goodness, this is the biggest show in the history of the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was an ensemble cast. It was a cavalcade of stars from the entertainment world, entertainment, including like Billy Martin. He's a baseball entertaining. Muhammad Ali. Then of course you go to Liberace and the Rockettes and all these things. And I'm leaving out a lot of names, but it was a cavalcade of stars. So it touched connected with many forms of media. You know, the sports media would write about Muhammad Ali or Billy Martin. The entertainment media would talk about Liberace dancing with the Rockettes. A lot of these stars that were doing a commentary or an interview, the Bob Ukers of the world, they had their own people and entities that followed them media-wise. So what McMahon did, very intelligently, by the way, he created this outlet to garner more promotion and more news, more awareness. So finally, if you hear enough times, what this WrestleMania thing they're talking about, they're going to do it in a dome? Really? Last time I saw it was at the Armory,
right?
Type deal. So yeah, it was huge it was good for all wrestling business. It created an awareness for the genre itself with a different, I thought maybe a little different perception. It wasn't smoky arenas with, primarily male audiences and stuff. It was families are going. It was a Disney kind of deal. And I think that it helped all of wrestling create that awareness for what we were trying to do for a living. But, you talk about Bobby's, that money. When Bobby was, he did all kinds of stuff early on to make money. He had a mortgage at the age of 16, a home mortgage, Connor. You could have helped him out. And it was $52 a month. And so he was, that was important. You could see then that having stability in a home, a roof over your head, and knowing it's going to be there tomorrow was something that he always sought to have. Not unlike you or me or anybody else. We all want homes, we want roof over our head. So that shows great responsibility. And for a guy that portrayed this character on television that was totally, he's from Beverly Hills and this, that, and the other, all those things. The image that he created for himself as a TV character was about a 180 from who he really was, which to me was absolutely amazing. He could pull that off. That's how talented he was. He created the Bobby the Brain Heenan character that had some of his qualities, no doubt, his timely banter, his sense of humor. He could be caustic, as I said earlier. He could be funny, or both. So it was really amazing to me that a guy with an 8th grade education who started out his life at 16, that was 2 years after the 8th grade, that he had a mortgage.
I don't even know how that's legal. Like, you're not even old enough to legally sign a contract, but I guess things are different back then.
Well, he might have brought it from you're right. You're more with this than I'm assuming he bought a place from an owner.
Yeah, an individual.
And the owner financed it. That's kind of what I believe how that worked out. So with that said, it's certainly logical. But that's amazing. That's an amazing background.
Yeah.
Again, considering a guy became the best in his field in the world. And I know that's subjected to, well, what about Gary Hart? What about Jim Cornette? What about all these other great managers? J.J. Dillon's of the world, all the staples in WWF. He was, I think you ask almost anybody. If you ask Ric Flair who he thought was the greatest manager of all time, I know what he's going to say.
Bobby Heenan.
Bobby Heenan. So, because Flair grew up with Bobby Heenan, living in Minneapolis, and the AWA headquartered there. So, but Bobby's story is so unique, and it's so unlike what you saw on television that it's just astonishing the success that he was able to achieve with the educational background that he had, and not having and being raised in a single parent home, having had the responsibility before he got his driver's license at 16 to buy the groceries, to pay the rent. That's just to me, it's an amazing story, and it's really a story that I believe a movie could be made about Bobby Heenan, but using some of these things we're talking about here now that people would just consume very aggressively. So he's a hugely interesting guy in that regard.
It's such a fascinating story. Let's talk a little bit about, when we're circling back to WrestleMania 3 just for a moment. You're on the outside looking in, and I think, this is sort of the dying days of the territory system, 1987. We know that the Cowboys going to be looking to get out and broker a deal with Crockett. His business seems to be down a little bit. Florida isn't what it once was. Crockett seems to be on the rise. AWA's on life support, but these pockets of wrestling territories, they still exist. And I wonder, is everybody looking at what Vince is putting together for WrestleMania 3? And you said maybe he was trying to change the perception, but it isn't just a male audience. It isn't a dark, smoky arena. It does feel like Disney, to your point. I know in public places, and certainly if you guys were talking to each other, everybody had to universally pan that and say, "Oh, we don't do that. That's for kids. That's bullshit. What we do is better. I would never do that." But deep down inside, everybody's got to be thinking, man, they're probably printing money up there. I need to find a way to figure out how to be on that team. Is that right?
Hell yeah, because it's all about putting an ass every 18 inches. And that 18-inch thing is the standard size of a seat.
Right.
In a bleacher, in an arena, basketball facility. Those seats, they may be different now for more comfort and people's bigger asses like you and me. But in all due respect, you have a nice ass, Conrad. I'll have to tell you that right. My God, his ass is amazing. But the ass over 18 inches is a secret formula.
Right.
It's like Cowboy told a promoter one time who called him and said, I can't understand what the hell you're going to kill the business. And Watts was incredulous. He was on a speakerphone, and I was in his office when this conversation took place. And the guy says, very prominent promoter, very well respected within the annals of the of wrestling, especially the NWA, said, you got a black man as the goddamn booker. And to make it even worse, you're pushing an N word, unfortunately, as your top babyface. So the booker was Ernie Ladd, the babyface was Junkyard Dog. And Bill said, my favorite color is green.
Yeah.
Real simple. And he said, and they're putting asses every 18 inches. That's all I care about. And the boys had the same philosophy. Again, you're in an era where you've got these guys that have an 8th grade education, that can make big money. They can make more money than college professors were making. They can make big money, more money than a lot of coaches were making in a big world. In that era, it sounds incredible now. Well, that can't be true. Well, go back and do your research. It is true. So everybody was chasing a dollar. And the fact that there were no contracts where you're guaranteed a weekly stipend or things of that nature. You're an independent contractor without a contract. You're going to pay all your own road expenses. That was not negotiable. Every now and then you get some top guy that would get a little bit extra cheese on the swapper for travel, a little bonus for long trips or something like that. But it was not normal and it was not often. So you're chasing that buck all the time. So that's why McMahon was so successful in if people say raiding the territory, he put this company out of business. Well, here's the thing about it. The promoters that allowed that to happen put their own asses out of business. Let's be honest about it. If you're that poor of a promoter and you can't see the future and you hold on to the incumbents that have been on top forever and a day, and you're not putting the opportunity and the rocket ship behind some younger guys that could get over and have another longer shelf life over than a 40 or a 50-year-old wrestler, that's your fault. It's not McMahon's fault because you didn't look ahead. And so he goes and gets these established guys that know how to work, they know how to perform, and he did it very easily because of the potential to make massive money if we all hit. And WrestleMania 3 certainly hit for everybody, in and out of the WWF.
So everybody's paying attention to the company and people start figuring out how to get there. It takes you a few years, but you finally make it there in 93. And then what do you know? You become fast pals with Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Tell us some of your first memories of working with Bobby. Of course, most fans remember at WrestleMania 9, Bobby stole the show to get started, coming out to ringside, riding a camel backwards, as only Bobby could. I mean, Bobby made sure to make the most of his minutes on TV. And I know you've really harped on that over the years that, hey, if you're trying to, make it in WWE, you may not have a lot of time. You may only have a minute here or 3 minutes there, but if you really want to be a star, you got to maximize your minutes. You got to make the most of it, leave an impression, leave them wanting more. Did anybody do that better than Bobby Heenan?
I don't think so. He was an opportunist. He knew that he didn't want to be poor anymore. He knew that he had suffered enough through bad payoffs and this, that, and the other. He wanted to get some stability in his life, as we've discussed. But he was very opportunistic. That whole idea of riding the camel or the elephant, was it a camel or an elephant? What'd you say it was?
I thought it was a camel.
It might have been a camel. I can't. Hell, I slept since then, Conrad. Believe it or not, I can't remember. But I know it was Bobby's idea. And, it was hard not just to break out laughing and fall out of character during the commentary, because he was the exact contrast of Randy Savage. Bobby was bright, cheery, funny, and Randy was dark and dramatic and intense. Nice little parallel. It was my job to connect the two and keep some continuity going there as the kind of a point guard, for lack of a better term. I probably was I might have been the world's whitest, fattest, and slowest point guard in the game. But that was my job. And the three of us had never worked together 1 minute. We had no rehearsals. We had no walkthroughs. The only thing that I had under my belt, broadcasting wise in WWE, was the fact that Heenan and I did those matches I talked about earlier that week, before we all went to Vegas. And we did those in Stanford, of course. And, the word got back that, that this guy from, this Oklahoma guy is not bad. And he's a decent guy. And the thing that got me over the hump, I think, was the fact that Monsoon and Bobby and Sheen would point out the fact, hey, this guy's not he may sound like a rube. He may sound like a good old boy, but he's paid dues for 19 years. What do you guys want from him? What's the deal? And he's here on our team now. So I think there were even people that thought that I was like a double agent, some horse shit, silliest crap in the world. Double agent. Give me a break. It's just so stupid. It's fucking ignorant. But because of the influence and the clout that those three icons had, they embraced me. I became like a little, hey, look, I was younger than them. I didn't mind driving. Some of the greatest times of my entire life were driving a Cadillac rental car with leather seats, of course, so Monsoon could get in and out easier, with Heenan and Gorilla. Monsoon rode shotgun. Heenan rode in the back seat. They were the greatest road trips of my life. And you talk about the stuff that like Tony and I are doing on the road. I could only imagine how those would have aired with young JR driving, and then Monsoon and Bobby in the car, just telling stories. And I guess in the music business, they call it riffing. Maybe they call it that riffing and other things. They just ad-lib. And that one story would lead to another story. They had their own great segues. They knew how to get in and out of a story and how to perpetuate a story, to extend a story, whatever you needed at that particular moment. But those are the greatest trips in the world. And we know that. Well, the one thing I had to do was find a Bob Evans, because Monsoon and Bobby wanted to eat at Bob Evans as much as they could. So Bob Evans was a stop every morning when we were on the road doing TVs, and that was my job to make sure I found the Bob Evans. And because Monsoon wanted his I think they have a specialty there called peanut butter pie or something like that.
Mm.
You ever had peanut butter pie, Conrad?
I have. Logan's used to have it years ago.
Okay, so you know the drill.
Yeah.
That was Monsoon's sweet tooth. And of course, Heenan would have he would have a routine for a waitress. If you had a waitress like, what was that show called, the old TV sitcom, the waitress name was Flo. I can't remember the name of it, but she was a typical chewing gum, beehive haircut, busty.
Yeah, it was a sitcom just called Flo.
Is that what it was?
It was a spinoff of Alice, I think.
There you go. Alice is what I was trying to think of. Yeah, Flo was a spinoff. Hence the deal. Flo was in a faction. It gives his wrestling parlance. Flo was in a faction that was headed by Alice. And the goal of every faction is to find new stars within the group so that individual can spin out and create their own show. So Alice had the faction. Flo was a member. She spun off into her own show. So there were a lot of Flows on the road, and Heenan he would mumble or he'd say something. He'd get their attention in any ways he could. One-liners, boom, boom, boom. Or he'd say, I remember one of his great routines was he'd want a piece of pie, right? So he said, "What kind of pie you got today?" And so they'd say, "Look, I'll give you 3 examples. Well, we have apple, cherry, and peach." Okay, I'll have lemon.
I love that.
They wouldn't even think about it. They'd go back, "Oh, we don't have lemon." Okay, now what do you have again? We'd have, and Monsoon now he's rolling his eyes because he's waiting on his food.
Sure.
And so I'm laughing. This is a Vegas lounge act for me.
Absolutely.
I'm loving this. What kind of pie do you have again? Well, we have apple, we have cherry, and we have peach. Oh, great, I'll take chocolate. They walk off again. "Hey, I'm sorry, we don't have chocolate." So he'd go through that 2 or 3 times till Monsoon with that massive hand would slap down the table, scare the shit out of everybody, and say, it's like the old. I got these damn old sitcoms in my mind. The Honeymooners, when Art Carney would go crazy and go on some tangent, and then Jackie Gleason would interrupt him with a scream or a guttural yell about something. That was basically, "Will you stop?"
Right.
That's will you stop became very applicable. Will you stop? So we had a pie route and it was the same shit every morning at breakfast with the waitress. And it was just funnier than hell. It was all good spirited, but he was performing then the TV character. Then you get him in the car on a trip and maybe he would be serious about something that was a serious topic. He knew how to be serious. He just didn't like to be serious very often.
It's so fun to hear his old traveling stories like that. I think Tony Schiavone once told us on What Happened When, that whenever they would go check into like a hotel or, a gas station cashier, if they had some sort of display on the counter just to entertain himself, he would pretend to fall and knock everything on the counter off. And as he starts to catch himself, he just absolutely makes it worse and keeps knocking stuff off before they eventually just say, "Please just leave." And it was just a way to entertain himself. And he even told a story once about Bobby getting tangled up in a hotel lobby when they were vacuuming the floors. They had one of those commercial vacuum cleaners with what feels like 1,000-foot power cord. And he gets himself tangled in it and takes a bump and knocks the vacuum cleaner over and just on and on. Did you ever see any shenanigans like that?
Oh yeah. Jan and I were sitting in a hotel lobby. I think it was in Pittsburgh. And she didn't go to a lot of events, in the early WWF days. She started going to a pay-per-view. Yeah. Or if it was in Pittsburgh, fly her in and would see our family was there. She has a couple of sisters still living in Pittsburgh. So, we're in the lobby. Heenan gets up to go to the bathroom, and we're in the middle of the lobby, kind of in the front of the facility, and the bathroom was all the way in the farthest corner of the hotel that you could get. So Bobby goes to the bathroom, and you can see there's a clear view of his walk. You can see everybody going to the bathroom, men, women, whatever it may be. Good view, so to speak. And Bobby came back out of the bathroom, and he had attached a roll of toilet paper to the back of his pants. So it's like he took a dump and he cleaned himself, but he didn't quite get all the paper. And it was coming out of the back of his pants. And he used pretty much a whole roll of toilet paper.
Sure.
In other words, he had a train behind him, a tail that was probably 20 feet long. So he walks back to he walks up the deal. Everybody sees him. Now, other people in the lobby bar, what have you, they're looking. They all start laughing because he's selling the hell out of it. He's actually non-selling it, but he's selling it. He's just happy-go-lucky whistling, and kind of a nice little bounce in his step. And he's got this 20 feet piece of toilet paper unrolled that he's carrying behind him like a train at a formal wedding. So he did shit like that all the time. He liked to. You get a round of drinks, and then you'd have the server, normally a female, would come over to pick up the empties, and somehow, some way, he would reach across. It's like there's one more drink here. Let me just grab this. And then while he did, of course, you know what's going to happen. He's going to knock over everything on the tray. And then he tries to pick them up, and then he slips. It was physical comedy. And he was so good at physical comedy. But if you go back to the era that he grew up in, he was a Three Stooges fan.
Right.
What the hell did the Three Stooges build their legacy on? Physical comedy. It wasn't a Seinfeld routine. It was physical comedy. So he loved that physical stuff, and he did things like that all the time. All under the guise, that was an accident. I'm sorry. He reached out and picked something up, spilled something else, and like you said, Tony mentioned, just leave. Just leave. So, but he generally knew when to leave, and his timing was impeccable. Let's
talk a little bit about Connecticut for a moment, because when you first go to the WWF, you're going to have to relocate. Does anybody give you any tips on where to live or where to avoid? Does Bobby have a place up there at the time? Is he sort of helping you direct traffic?
No, Bruce was. Bruce was my guy there. Bruce helped me get my meeting with Vince, my phone meeting that resulted in that face-to-face McMahon and I had in Augusta, Georgia, where he missed the entire taping session. He was talking to me. He missed all 3 shows. People would stick their head out the doors and wondering that maybe this guy's a undercover guy. Maybe Vince is in a bad way out there. What's going on? The boss is not here. He's always here. And he wasn't there at all. Because we talked for over 3 hours, and he was engaged and I was engaged and I was motivated to get a job, and I still had a contract at WCW, but the handwriting was on the wall. I wasn't going to be used on the air for whatever reasons. Didn't matter now. Best thing ever happened to me was to go to WWF at that point in time in my career, by far. Bruce was my liaison there. And as a matter of fact, my first place that I lived in Connecticut, my first run there in '93, I lived in Wilton, Connecticut. And I lived in a little apartment complex, condo complex, I guess better said, a little bit bigger, in the same complex that Bruce lived in. So when Jan was there, Bruce was there because he wanted to eat, and she was a great cook. So it was a good situation. So Bruce was my guy there. But on restaurants around town, Heenan would help there. We went to a hot dog place called Swanky Frank's a lot. And that was just a hot dog joint. And a friend of the business, and a friend of Pat's, and Pat Patterson and Louis Dondero, his partner, and all these guys, that would go there to eat grilled hot dogs. I still think somebody could make a fortune selling grilled hot dogs. Like a flat grill, Conrad. The old school.
But they do that with Five Guys. Five Guys started doing that.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that. That's good news. That's great information. It's probably the best information I have all day. Five Guys grilled hot dogs.
I just had one for the first time this last week. Somebody said, "Hey, I got you a hot dog," and I said, "What?" Because like, who delivers hot dog? I didn't think that was the thing. And they said, "Oh yeah, I wanted you to try it from Five Guys," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know they did it." So I had one, and by the way, it was legit. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you add some of those nice fries they make, you're really getting in the food heaven.
The reason I bring up the Connecticut is there's a famous Andre story that I guess Andre had a French restaurant in Connecticut that he really loved whenever they'd have to do stuff at Titan Towers, and Bobby would go with him. And, I think Bobby said the food was, what Andre would say, "Oh, it's just like my mom used to make," but it was just, I don't know, a weird menu: liver, tongues, lungs, lips. Bobby even nicknamed the place the Autopsy Grill. And he said there was an old guy there named Charlie who played the piano. And one day when he was leaving, he went over to Charlie and said, "One of these days you're going to be on the menu." And that just feels like, I don't know. It feels like anything you did with Bobby, just going to dinner, it's going to be an occasion, because he's going to be a barrel of laughs the whole time.
Yeah. I never made the French restaurant, but I have heard the stories, Andre. And look, all the guys, when you're going to be in one area a lot, I'm sure that the AEW guys, when they come here to Jacksonville, they got their places now. They go, they stay at the,
they go to Morton's. Don't give the hotel,
Morton's.
But they go to Morton's for sure.
Yeah. If you can find it yourself if you want to, but, yeah, but they got their spots.
Yeah.
And Andre had a spot, and it did make him feel like home. They spoke French there. So Andre's a French guy. Little point of home. That's like the time I went to England, and I found how did I meet this guy? Maybe on an airplane. I met a guy that was the national barbecue champion of the United States, that was found by a benefactor in the UK, and he opened, I think, 3 barbecue restaurants. So that when I go to England during that point in time, I want to try out that barbecue restaurant, because it was a piece of home. And they were in London. Last time you and I were there, we didn't even go to London, did we? Did we go to London?
Yeah, we did.
That one night.
But we didn't venture out much. We were on Kenny McIntosh runs a tight ship. If we were there, we were working.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's good.
Yeah.
And we got paid. Kenny's on some new ventures now. I hope he does well on them.
He's got a new magazine we should mention. It's Inside the Ropes. He's done a great series and interview series and tours and things like that. You can check him out on YouTube, but the new magazine is called Inside the Ropes, and they'll even deliver it over here. So you don't just have to live in the UK to get this. You can pick it up in America as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Kenny's a good guy. So we had that's all I'm saying is you gravitate to what you're used to. I could promise you, Conrad, if you and I had a day where we didn't try, we had a London and then an off day before we went to Manchester or wherever their next stop was going to be, we'd have tried it. We'd have checked it out. Why not? We both love barbecue. We love smoked meat, and that's what it was. The guy, he had a smoker. He had the smokers. He had everything. It was just like home. And they were always busy. It was a different category of food. Same thing in Stanford. I'm sure there's probably one real good French restaurant in Stanford. There might be more. Hell, I don't know, but that wasn't my cuisine of choice. But Bobby, you're right about the fact about Bobby. Wherever he was going to go, he had. If people knew that Bobby was maybe going on a certain day, we go on a voiceover day. Our voiceover day in that era for Challenge was on Wednesdays. Vince and whoever he was working with did Superstars on Tuesdays. It could be Savage or Piper, whoever, Jesse, I guess. I can't remember who all the Vince's. We had top level, A level talents for their number one syndicated show. For example, the McMahon version of the syndicated show aired at noon on Channel 5 in New York City, the Fox affiliate. And that was a monster. And then on Sundays at noon, aired Challenge. And I remember when the first time that the ratings information was shared with Heenan and I, the fact that the Sunday show was outdrawing the rating wise the Saturday show, and the Saturday show had a lot more star power, talent wise. The main angles were shot on that show, all those things. So that was a kind of a source of pride. And he was just trying to figure out how, Bobby lived to torment Vince. He loved it. And there's a lot of great stories about how he did that. Some are a little crass, but they're always funnier than hell. So that was a nice little success for us, but that's kind of what we did. And the difference in working with Bobby and the crew, the same crew of the day before worked with Vince and his partner of that era, was the fact that those Tuesday voiceovers would be all day. Vince was normally late because he was trying to, he was running a company and booking and producing TV, and he's going to come do voiceovers. So, and then of course, during the day, there would be, a litany of phone calls seemingly that he had to take. And so it was stop and start, stop and start. And then of course, the other thing that was a big deal was the catering. The catering for Vince on Tuesdays, you had a lot of salads, you had a lot of chicken breasts, you had a real clean, probably a smart way to go. Now, the difference was when Heenan and I worked, they would ask us what we wanted to eat. So we would say, whatever you guys want. We don't mind having potato salad, things that you probably shouldn't be eating, but we'd eat whatever we wanted. And the crew loved it because they finally got what they would say real food. And so that was another way that we ingratiated ourselves to the crew. And here's the other thing. We would do our voiceovers. There were 3 1-hour shows. Now, they weren't 1 hour, they're 42 minutes. But we would finish those 3 1-hour shows oftentimes in about 3.5 hours. The only time we stopped was to go take a pee break or walk outside and have a cigarette type deal. So, and then on the days that Bobby was having a bad day, we would take a ride, which is where the chocolate cake came in. So it was a real interesting time with him, always entertaining, always a kind of a half-assed adventure. Without a doubt. So, but I loved every minute of it, quite frankly.
Talk to me a little bit about, you said when he was having a bad day, we'd take a ride, and that's when the chocolate cake came in. What does that mean? Can you expound on that?
Yeah, we go out and smoke a joint.
No, but I mean, he was having a bad day. So,
this tired. He, like Monsoon, was very outspoken on creative, not on the air, but certainly behind the scenes, off camera. He would harp on things that he saw that were wrong, and it's no different than today. The presentation of today's wrestling is much different in a lot of areas than it was in that era, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with growing or evolving. The evolution of the product is more spot oriented nowadays. There's very little chain wrestling. People don't, if they have a submission finish and let's say they use the figure 4 as an example, you would think that the common sense would say that the individual that was proficient at the figure 4 would work on the leg during the course of the match to weaken the leg, to make it more susceptible to the figure 4, so that the individual applying the hold could win by submission, basically just win. And that was Bobby and Monsoon both would complain about that. Gene, no, he wasn't immune to that either. A lot of us old school guys sometimes didn't understand the lax version of things, the rules not being adhered to, because they knew as former heels. Monsoon and Heenan were both great heels in their wrestling days. You needed rules to break. That's what differentiated a lot of the good guys from the bad guys.
Right.
The bad guys cheated to gain an unfair advantage, which anybody, whether you're a diehard fan or a casual fan or a first-time fan, you always could understand good versus evil. It's a normal thing. That's how we're wired. The good Lord put all these emotions in us, and one of them is, the fact that we should be able to ascertain which is a good thing, which is a bad thing for us. In other words, I don't play with snakes. I don't even want to be near a snake. I believe that snakes are bad. Now, somebody that's not William Regal, who's a reptile guy, he and I used to have nice debates about that because he has all these big lizards and I guess the snakes and stuff. That's his hobby. So who's it to me to condemn somebody's hobby? That's like condemning an opinion. If you and I start talking about football, eventually it's going to boil down to Oklahoma and Alabama.
Yeah.
And I know where you're going to, I know what side of the aisle you stand on.
Yeah.
And you know me. But it doesn't mean that when we're through talking about it, that we hate each other.
Sure.
I think we have more common sense than that. That's what we see a lot on social media nowadays. If somebody makes an opinion, if I say on this show, which I've already said, that I thought Bobby Heenan was the greatest all-around performer that I ever personally saw, some people are going to say, oh, no, that can't be. What about this guy?
Yeah.
What about that guy? Okay, well, what about that guy? If that's your opinion, then you're more than welcome to it. But it's just not how I look at it.
You know what?
From my perspective.
It sucks, Jim, because I feel like sometimes that is just the way of social media. And let's be clear too, us complimenting Bobby and saying he's, one of the all-time greats and one of the very best and at the peak of the mountain, whatever. This is a Bobby Heenan show and he was your friend. We're putting him over. What's so fucking wrong about being nice about people? But are we supposed to get on here and say, well, he was probably 3 or 4? Fundamentally, Who talks about their friends like that? Nobody.
It's not a good trait.
No,
it's not a good trend, or whatever term we want to use. We should be able to share each other's opinions respectfully.
Yeah.
And that's done too seldomly, I think, in our world. But in any event, Bobby was, he would get stressed out. He might have had a bad flight.
Mm-hmm.
Look, all those bumps he took over the years, he wasn't immune to those. He had a bad neck. He had a bad back. Because again, you go back and watch Bobby Heenan's work, my God, Conrad, he was in the lights. When he took a backdrop, it wasn't just get over the body and then take your little flat back. He got elevated, and he could feed a comeback as good as anybody I've ever seen. And to me, I mentioned this on the show. If you're going to be a heel, God damn it, you gotta feed a comeback, and that means you got to be able to take a bump, get up, take another bump, get up, take another bump. Then boom, whatever the end of the sequence is, then it's a false finish, or you take a powder, or whatever it may be. But you got to be able to feed that comeback, and Bobby could do that better than anybody ever saw.
He's just one of the all-time greats. Let's talk a little bit about, when his role starts to change. When you're first coming into the company, he's no longer actively managing. He's doing on-camera stuff as a commentator, and fast forward a little bit, he's not there very long before he winds up in WCW. Did you ever imagine there would be a time or day where he wouldn't be a part of the World Wrestling Federation?
I really didn't. And same goes for Gene. I thought that Gene and Bobby were lifers in WWE, WWF at the time. And I never envisioned them leaving. They were so good at what they did. I mean, there was not a better color analyst on TV, in my opinion, than Bobby Heenan. He motivated you to watch and to listen. And because you didn't want to miss anything. I go back, one of my favorite shows, and you and I chatted about this time or two, is The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I got every episode of The Sopranos on my iPad. So when I'm flying, or I need to entertain myself with something, I start watching Soprano episodes, and I go back and listen to them, watch them, and I hear things on there that I missed the first time around.
Yep.
Because it's so much great dialogue, and again, this comes at you rapid fire. So sometimes I didn't get to process when I heard it the first time. I go back and hear it again and again, and I hear things in the dialogue that I missed. So you didn't want to do that with Bobby, because invariably you're going to be laughing at something he said, and he doesn't really let you up.
Right.
Because then you miss another line that you just can't live without, so to speak. So that's the thing about that. Bobby was I just thought he was a staple. But look, things change. I'm sure some people would say, well, I never thought Hulk Hogan would leave WWF. I didn't, but he did. Things change. But Bobby leaving was something. Look, here's a guy, again, we talked about dropped out of school to feed his mom and his grandma in the 8th grade. A guy that got into wrestling business because he wouldn't take no for an answer. He endured $5 payoffs. And then finally after a while, maybe this speaks to how good he was. Bobby Heenan was the first manager booked by Sam Muchnick in St. Louis.
Wow.
St. Louis was a very structured, sports-like environment, and the matches were everything. They had good TV with with a lot of great talents, like Larry Matizak was a great friend, and what a wonderful guy was broadcasting there, among other guys. We know Joe Garagiola was on the broadcast team there, the old baseball guy. So Bobby was just so good that Muchnick saw that he was able to take a heel. If Sam had a heel that, I'll give you an example. Black Jack Lanza, one of my favorite guys. Jack is a great conversationalist. He's a very intelligent guy. He taught school for a long time before he got into pro wrestling, but he had a big frame. He was educated. He started working in the office for Vern, keeping track of things, staying organized, like a lot of school teachers are trained to do. But Jack was not the greatest. He wasn't like Mulligan. The Black Jacks were Mulligan and Lanza, but Mulligan was the charismatic one of the duo. But Lanza could certainly hold his own and more in the ring.
Right.
Great ring general, Conrad, but he wasn't strong in a promo. So guys like that Sam liked to book because they're reliable, they're hardworking, they always give you great effort. Sam loved those guys, and why not? But they needed to be able to verbalize as the time moved on, where verbalization and selling tickets became an art form. And nobody was better at drawing heat or selling tickets or focusing on an event or a match than Bobby Heenan. So Bobby became the first manager ever booked by Sam Muchnick. And looking back at Mr. Muchnick's career and his legacy, that speaks volumes when you stop and think about it.
No doubt. I wonder, in hindsight, you've told us that Bobby was pretty gracious with you, and a lot of other guys maybe weren't in the WWF. But I mean, you come in March of '93, and by the end of the year, he's gone. I mean, we've talked about how much you enjoyed working with him and how much time you spent with him. And realistically, you're with him a handful of months, and then it's up. His contract's coming due at the end of the year. And you got to wonder, in hindsight, did Vince have that in his mind's eye when he hired you? Like, I know you've said before, well, I was probably brought in to replace Gorilla because Gorilla had some health issues and was probably wanting to slow down a little bit, but he doesn't renew Bobby either just a few months later. Do you think that was more based on, finances, or him just ready to move on and have a new face, him being Vince?
Well, Vince knew, first of all, my role and Bobby's role were entirely different. Entirely different. He was playing quarterback and I was playing safety.
Right.
We're on the same team, but we didn't play in the same position. We weren't competing for the same job, et cetera, et cetera. Vince knew the same thing with Gene. When Gene's contract was coming up, I remember Vince talking to me about that. He said, just so you'll know, because it affected the broadcast side, which is where I was focused on at the time. I'm not gonna renew Okerlund, but he doesn't know it. Mm. And he said, but I'm going to help him get a lot of money. He said, and I said, okay, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to let the other guy steal him. His contract's going to lapse. He's going to be able to go wherever he wants. And I know that if meaning WCW, think that they're stealing one of my primary faces and voices, then they'll pay him a lot more money than I'm going to be able to pay him here, and it'll be a great payday for Gene doing the same job.
Right.
And so that was kind of how that worked out. I don't know that was the same case with Bobby, but Bobby was getting increasingly more challenging to work with for some people in the company. Not me. When the light came on, he never phoned shit in. He was always on top of his game. That's why, even though we were only together for a few short months, they were as memorable a few short months as I've had in my entire career, and it's a long career. Knock on wood as I am. Hopefully it goes on another few years, hopefully. But nonetheless, it seems like we worked together forever because it was that good. But I don't know that. I think did Okerlund leave before Gene or before Bobby?
Yeah,
we know that
they're both going to leave around the same time, and it just feels like it's the end of an era. You know, I think it's been written that Bobby's contract is up in '93, and Vince does offer him a new contract. But then a week later, he tells Bobby he couldn't honor that contract and needed him to take a 50% pay cut. And Bobby said he wasn't able to do that. And he was tired of going to New York, tired of crowds, tired of the travel, tired of people. So he decides it's time to go. And the December 3rd, 1993 Raw from White Plains, New York is Bobby's last Raw. And Bobby wrote that at the production meeting earlier that day, Vince asked him, how did he want to leave? And Bobby said, have Gorilla throw me out. And he was going through his bags and finding stolen towels and light bulbs and ashtrays and phone books and everything from a hotel, because that's what the brain would do. And Pat Patterson allegedly asked, why don't you have bra and panties in there too? And Bobby replied, well, Pat, I think when we travel, you and I might pack differently, which is just great stuff. During the show, Gorilla comes out while Bobby's doing commentary. He grabs Bobby, walks backstage with his bag, throws him out of the arena. And then he gives his farewell and walks around to the back, and Gorilla is waiting for him in the car. And they drove to the LaGuardia Holiday Inn, and it's just an emotional moment that they share at the hotel. And when Bobby gets to his room, he has a big basket of bananas in there. So he calls Gorilla and says, I have some bananas in here. Do you want them? And they come down and hug and share a basket of bananas. And it really is like a divorce almost, but you know, it's a sad thing. These were two very best friends, and now their historic run is over. And we know that Bobby's going to wind up on WCW, and it's a sad thing, man. I never imagined I'd see Bobby leave the WWF. This feels like his home.
You're right. And I agree wholeheartedly. It still to me feels like his home. His greatest accomplishments were in WWE,
right?
Without a doubt. I think we could all agree on that. And that's not knocking WCW. Just he was used in a different way. He was the number one manager in the number one wrestling company in the world. And unlike today, even though I know here in AEW we're trying to. Tony Khan is trying to, reinvigorate the character of managers with Tully there and Arn there and so forth. All these guys that we're using, Vicky Guerrero's there. It's just, he's trying to regenerate that role.
Right.
We know that there was a time that the managers kind of fell out of fashion. And they still are in some areas. Does WWE have a dominant manager right now?
Well, you could argue Paul Heyman with the new Roman Reigns thing, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, but Paul is probably the exception.
Right.
It's a short list, I guess is my point.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not forgetting Paul Heyman's abilities whatsoever. And that was a good move for those guys, I think. But nonetheless, the manager thing was kind of out of vogue. And the other thing we haven't talked enough about, we kind of glossed over, I did, that Bobby had a terrible neck injury.
Right.
He was in a lot of pain often, hence his drinking. It kind of numbed the senses, and he was, his drinking never affected his work because he didn't drink on the job that I'm aware of. He didn't with me anyway. I'll put it that way. Because most of our voiceover started in the morning. Then we had that great lunch break with the food that we liked. and then the team, the production team loved the food, and they loved the fact they didn't have to stay there all day. Because sometimes, again, on those Tuesdays, because of the incessant amount of phone calls, the fact that Vince is multitasking, the voiceovers could go till in the evening,
right,
all day. And so these guys knew that when they were working with Heenan and I, that Heenan and me, that they would get, they're going to get home for supper. They're going to see their family, and that counted for something. So Bobby was just the WWE will always be the home of the brain to me. But I was almost as when they took him when he was unbooked as a manager and made strictly as a broadcaster. To me, that was another end of an era, because up until that point, there was no manager ever in wrestling, and I would argue since, that was better than Bobby Heenan. So you lose a key guy in that role, and quite frankly, Bobby Heenan's presence as a manager in WWE was never replicated. And that, if you think about that, all these years later, all the guys that were managers and for various reasons, Mr. Fuji was with Yoko because he helped Yoko travel and all these things. It was just, there just wasn't anybody that ever replaced him. So then when he left the broadcast booth, to me, his voice was synonymous with big events in the WWF, WWE, whatever you want to say. So I was really shocked that he left, and I was shocked that but after Gene got his deal, and Gene got a very favorable financial package from WCW, which is great.
By the way, let me add some context to that. You asked earlier, Gene's going to wind up leaving in September of 93, and he shows up on WCW in November of 93. 1 month later, Bobby finishes up with the WWF in December of 93, and he shows up on WCW programming in January of 94. So those guys weren't without a payday very long.
No, and they weren't. And I will say that because Gene and Bobby had their roots going all the way back to working together when they were younger guys for Vern Gagne in the AWA, they talked a lot.
Right.
They both lived in Florida. They'd known each other forever and a day. And so you can't tell, nobody can convince me that Gene's deal, and I'm sure Gene's old school enough not to reveal his entire financial package, but I'm sure he gave Heenan a pretty good indication of the kind of money that might be there for him, and it was more money than he was going to be able to get as a broadcaster only in WWF in that era. So I think that probably had an influence. Gene's deal probably had an influence on Bobby making the decision to leave and go there. And again, he would be, like you said, which is right, he hated the New York City airports. And he was so recognizable. And sometimes he didn't want to be bothered. And I understand, well, that's part of your job. That's what you're paid to do. Well, it is, but fans sometimes don't understand their boundaries. So, and I'll give you the example of that. I've been asked for autographs standing at a urinal.
Oh.
And I'd say, well, I can't sign it. My hands are full. Which is another blatant lie, but nonetheless, the boundaries. And Bobby was getting less patient and more than he was when he was younger, and he's more clearly defining his boundaries. And going through the New York City airports, or going through from New York over to Connecticut. And look, Stamford's a nice town, but it's not exactly a garden spot. It's a very industrial-oriented town, a working city, which is cool, but it sure as hell wasn't like Florida.
Right.
It wasn't like Bobby had, because Jan and I visited Bobby and Cindy on more than one occasion during that time that we were together, and then even after. And I remember he had the big, the screened-in pool to ward off the bugs and all that stuff. I remember that very vividly. They had a beautiful home that Cindy had designed, and it was exactly what you would think a home in Florida would be. A lot of white, a lot of bright colors, happy stuff. And so Bobby wasn't going to leave that situation, and the travel was a little bit better. And then the bottom line, going back to the old school, the money was better. And I think the money was the deciding factor in him leaving McMahon and going to work for WCW.
Let's talk a little bit about when he does come back. We know that he's going to be with WCW till 2000. Along the way, I think he's going to get some pressure to disparage Vince McMahon of the WWF on air a few times, and he's going to politely decline those opportunities, not wanting to sort of bite the hand that fed him for so long. Ultimately, he leaves before WCW goes under. They weren't happy with his performances or his attitude or his financial compensation. Either way, whatever it was, he's out of there. But he does wind up coming back for a couple of spots with you guys at the WWF. Most famously, he comes back in 2001 for WrestleMania 17. And what a moment that was. He's going to do commentary with his old pal Mean Gene for the Gimmick Battle Royal. What do you remember about seeing Bobby after all that time away when he came back for WrestleMania?
I thought it was absolutely amazing in Houston. That was such a magnificent event. I will argue that WrestleMania 17 in its total, from start to finish, with the atmosphere, the ambiance, all the intangibles, was one of the best WrestleManias that I was ever able to take part in. And, I was working that show with Heenan, and it was a very pivotal show because that's the show that Austin turned heel and sided with McMahon, all those good things. But the Battle Royal was strictly built for comedy, obviously. And I remember this about that scenario, that we were asked, what do you want to do during the Battle Royal? Well, the one thing I wanted to do was to make sure I could hear the commentary.
Right.
Because it might be a nugget in there that we could bring forward later in the show if it was applicable. So I said, I want to be able to hear the commentary. Well, why don't you want to stay at ringside? Because the opportunity to leave on a 3-hour pay-per-view and go PT.
Big deal.
What? Big deal. Wear darks. And so my deal was I want to stay at ringside. I want to listen and see these two geniuses who had great chemistry. Some of the most entertaining stuff on McMahon's television when Bobby and Gene were there, with the stuff that they did, like those wraparound shows.
Yep.
It was. I used to watch those guys. I used to go into work to watch them take their show like a kid. And I did. I'd sit in the control room and laugh my ass off because everything was off the cuff.
Right.
Oakland knew how to follow Heenan. Oakland was so good as a point guard that he allowed Heenan to lead the show. And then he would fill in the blanks, or he would feed Heenan a line to create another segue to something else. But I thought they were just absolutely amazing. So hey, look, again, I'm in the business now over 20 years, and I'm marking out to watch Bobby Heenan and Gene Oakland do their wraparound show. It was great. So, but it was wonderful to have them back. But I just wanted to be there to see it. I wanted to be where I could hear them because I had my headset on. I could hear what they were saying, and it was very, very heartwarming. Is one word I could use to describe that. It was really, really, really cool. And I'm glad that the booking was done. I guess some people say, well, McMahon will never bring him back after going to work for the enemy. He did. Well, even though it was a one-time shot type deal, but it helped make the show better. And that's what Bobby Heenan did every time he put the headset on. He made the show better. And until, again, working with me. I know Tony has different stories. Shivani has different stories about working with Bobby that weren't as pleasant as mine.
Right.
But again, I want to say that here's a guy getting older. He's got health issues. He's got a very painful neck injury, a neck condition that was very fragile, Conrad. He was very worried about being crippled. He was very worried he couldn't move around. He was worried about being confined to a wheelchair or something because of his neck injury. And it was a real concern. So I think that really contributed a lot to his drinking in the end and to his attitude, his demeanor. It wasn't the real Bobby Heenan that I worked with starting in 93.
You mentioned something there that I really want to circle back to. You said, a lot of people wondered, oh, well, he'll never do business with him again because he left. Talking about Vince not wanting to hire him back. I've always been fascinated by why he didn't get a more sustained run. I mean, we know he's going to be back for one more time after this. They're going to put him in the Hall of Fame in 2004. He helped steal the show there and, gets choked up talking about Gorilla Monsoon, saying that he wishes Gorilla was there, and steals the show, just poking fun at Rick and all the other shenanigans you get with any sort of Bobby Heenan appearance. But especially like in 01, he does a great job at WrestleMania 17, to your point, and he doesn't come in. But lots of other people are given opportunities after they say, I mean, they just trash Vince in public, whether it was Bret Hart or Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior. They're all welcome back. People who once upon a time you feel like, well, anybody can come back, but that guy, he's never coming back. Bobby never shit on the company, never disparaged Vince, and never got that opportunity. Why do you think Vince never gave him another look? Did he think his work had slipped? Did he just not feel, did he feel betrayed? What do you think?
I think it was more Bobby's work and where it had, what it had become. Bobby was having a hard time sitting for long periods of time.
Right.
And again, people just, maybe his attitude changed, or I think McMahon was just play the power play. It really wasn't. McMahon is smart enough to know the old theory. He learned from his dad, and Dad probably learned from his dad. Your goal is to get them. If you have a main event, the old theory is a guy's going to hold you up. Do what you can to get the main event in the ring,
right,
and then take the appropriate actions. But appease the talent to get past tonight, and then address tomorrow. So in other words, if you're going to fire somebody, don't fire them before the advertised main event, because all that does is hurt your paying customers who are sitting out there waiting. So I think McMahon knows to get the main event in the ring, and I think in the spirit of Bobby's condition, Bobby's having a hard time traveling, sitting in an airplane seat for long periods of time. He was just in a bad way health-wise. He obviously needed surgery long before, it's time. He needed to be fixed and made healthy. But again, you're in an era where we don't know as much about those type injuries as we know today. So and that was the situation with Austin. When Austin got hurt, nobody knew exactly how that was going to work out, because his injury was very delicate and very real. And, this final guy in the Lord Youngblood there in San Antonio said he could fix it. And he did, to get Steve back in the ring. But there was times along the way in the 80s where that was not an exact science. So Bobby was a victim of his own bumps and volume of bumps. I think Vince was aware that Bobby was he didn't travel as well as he used to. And boy, this is a profession that if you can't travel, you don't travel well, Conrad. Common sense will tell you you're not going to make it too long.
Right.
You just can't, because it's a necessary evil of this shit. So I don't think it was a personal thing, because Bobby always had a lot of fun with Vince. One of Bobby's favorite things to do was he got to TV early. So we'd do TVs, these syndicated shows, on location, on the road. And every building had a sign that said Vince's office. And which led to one of my promotions one time. I'll tell you that story some of these days, but it said Vince's office. And there would always be a line of talent during the day. I mean, literally like they're lining up to join the army.
Right.
Long line of people are waiting for free food, or like in Oklahoma, waiting for free cheese. And they say, so Bobby would get there early, long before Vince and his entourage would arrive. And Bobby, this was the days when the toilets didn't flush automatically. You had to manually flush the toilet. So in a lot of these commercial places now, you do your business, you get up, it flushes. Well, Bobby would he would wait he wouldn't have his morning constitutional that morning in the hotel. He waited till he got to the building to take a dump. And, with the hopes of creating quite the visual for in the stool, like saw log type stuff, And so he would go in the bathroom, Vince's office, do his business, and not flush. And of course, Vince's reputation as being very clean, germaphobe, maybe.
Yep.
All that stuff that we've heard about, the sneezing and didn't eat food with his hands and all this stuff. I said, how the fuck do you ever eat French fries? I don't eat French fries, pal. Okay, bad question. But so Bobby would go in there, take take care of his business, and leave all the evidence there. So I told him one time, I said, you know what he's going to do, don't you? He's going to get one of his stooges to pull that turd out of the toilet stool, and they're going to do a DNA test on your ass. And he stopped him. I stopped him in his tracks, and then just long enough to create more content. He would make jokes about it. So that was Bobby. So Bobby had this, I think, a love-hate type thing with Vince, but more love than anything else, because Vince was such an easy target to work towards, to work with. That was like when he was working with me. He had a whole new plethora of material.
Right.
Country guy, Oklahoma, all the normal stereotypical things that you would think of from a country boy from the state of Oklahoma or anywhere in the South. Could be Texas or Alabama, wherever it may be. So that gave him a whole new list of material to use. But Vince was an easy target, and Bobby loved to exploit Vince's perceived weaknesses in these various areas.
So you think it's really mostly just that maybe Vince felt like his work had deteriorated and he couldn't bring any more value as a commentator? Or, I mean, I guess that's really the only explanation I can come up with as to why he wouldn't have been welcome back, post WCW.
I think Vince realized that Bobby couldn't do the workload, even close to the workload that he used to do. No way. Where you do commentary on a show, then you come do the voiceovers, and then you go on the road and manage or something along those lines. Bobby's body, especially his neck injury, was not going to allow that to happen anymore. I don't think it was as much as his work had deteriorated. His body was deteriorating, which affected his work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the fact that Bobby couldn't do it anymore. So in other words, you could theoretically say, and I'm sure some people were thinking this, well, he was so good, why just bring him in for the main event or a match, something he would really add to? You could do that, and it's a viable alternative. But in that era, with budgets a lot tighter than they are now, you kind of had to wear more than one hat. I was talking about that line outside Vince's door. One of the things when Vince and I were talking about me getting into administration, I said, one of my goals is to eliminate that line outside your door. And his eyes opened big, and I said, because it'll allow you to focus on the things that are more important. Because what you're doing during the day is talent relations work, and you're getting pulled away from the creative side. And I said, that's probably not really a good thing to have happen. And so opening his eyes to that theory that I would do my best to eliminate the long line outside Vince's door, helped me get a shot at doing some talent relations work. And it worked out that way. Eventually, there was always somebody who wants to see Vince. I'd send them to him. I had no problem sending talents to Vince if they had an issue that I couldn't solve, and because we needed a solution. And so I would go to Vince and say, "Here's the deal, and here's what I said to the guy, and here's where we are in the conversation. He wants to talk to you, but you know the whole story." And so that was kind of how we started building our relationship. But Bobby couldn't hold up to the work anymore, Conrad. Was he not as funny? Of course he was. He just couldn't be funny and long. He couldn't do a long set.
Yeah.
He's gonna come out, tell you 2 or 3 jokes, 4 or 5 jokes, and move on. That's like even when he was managing, and he was managing Flair. How good was that?
Oh,
but
great.
it lasted a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Bobby couldn't stand up at ringside and go through the gyrations of selling for his heel, guy He couldn't do all those things he used to do, unfortunately, they were instinctual. So he was doing them anyway, and then suffering later. So that's why he didn't manage Flair any longer than he did. His neck just kept getting worse and worse. So when you can't even sit in a chair for a long show, much less sit in a airplane seat because of your issues, you see what I'm saying? It's just not a long-term solution. And in today's world, where rights fees, and especially in McMahon land, are so astronomical, they could afford to do that. But that was a different financial model then than there is now. And that really curtailed Bobby's returning on a full-time basis. He just wasn't physically able to work a full-time schedule. And a lot of folks never realized how bad his neck was at that point in time.
We should mention that, after he does that shot for you guys at WrestleMania 17 and 01, he's diagnosed with throat cancer in 02. The cancer goes into remission in 04, but as we all know, the health complications continue to pile up. I just wish, things could have been different, and maybe, obviously if you had a magic wand, you'd get rid of everyone's cancer. But I can't help but think when Mean Gene came back almost as an ambassador, and he's doing lots of things for the on-demand service, which used to be called 24/7, those wraparounds, man, that would have just been gold if we could have had Bobby and Mean Gene there. But of course, at that point, he's battling cancer. We don't ever talk about, or maybe we don't talk about it enough, the good guy Vince, who really reaches into his pocket and helps take care of folks who aren't with the company anymore, who are just in a bad way, and maybe they need not a hand out, but a hand up. And I wonder, in the twilight of his life here, do you think Vince was still helping Bobby a little bit here and there?
I don't know that. I don't know that answer. If he did, it wouldn't shock me. If he did. When I heard the news, I thought, what a cruel hand to be dealt.
Yeah.
For one of the greatest talkers ever to lose his ability to do that. And I know I can't remember what year it was, but I went to a card show, like we, and like we've done, like your Starcast,
right,
type thing. Not as big, not as good, but there were a lot of those in pre-virus days that were fun to go to, because you see it's like a reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going. The one thing I dreaded on this particular booking was seeing Bobby again, and the reason why, the cancer had just eaten him up. He didn't even look like the same guy. He had all these surgeries, and he got tears in his eyes, and I got tears in my eyes. We saw each other, and Conrad, I couldn't understand one word he was saying.
Wow. It
just broke my heart. It just broke my heart. And of course, his wife Cindy was always with him, take care of him when he's making those paydays for those signings. And but it just killed me. It shattered me to see what he had become through this fucking cancer. And it's just, again, I'm thinking, golly, of all the places to get cancer for a guy like Bobby,
yeah,
to get it, and it curtailed completely his ability to communicate verbally on a normal level was so cruel. I didn't understand it, and I know there's probably a reason for all these things, and I'm not getting into religious philosophies and all that stuff. But bottom line, man, I was just felt, I couldn't believe what I saw. I couldn't believe, and here's the other thing, was heartwarming. Finally, something heartwarming in this whole damn mess. His attitude was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I think he was glad to be alive, because he came so close to dying on more than one occasion before he finally passed away. So he brightened my day, but it's a visual that I will never forget. And then the interaction that he and I had, he was trying to tell me stories of things that we did and laughs that we had, and jokes that he made, and things of that nature. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand and Cindy would interpret some of it the best she could.
Right.
I think what he's trying to say is blank, whatever. And oh man, it's just you just can't imagine the devastation. Well, a lot of people can't, certainly, because they've had family members and loved ones that have been affected by cancer in various parts of their body. It's just absolutely terrible. And I'll just never forget that day. I used to think, I wish I'd never seen Bobby this way. I wish I could just remembered him like it was when we were working together. And then we'd go to Swanky Frank's and have a couple of hot dogs and smoke a joint on the way back to the TV studio and walk in with a full belly and, or would have normally a layover. So we got all this catering. Well, sometimes he just needed to get out of the studio.
Right.
And he didn't have a car there, and I did. I lived there. So that's what we would do. It was anything I needed to do to get the match in the ring and get our job done. And that's what I did with the brain. And I never regretted it at all, Conrad. It was a little bit above me on the Call of Duty, and I know it's not typical. It's not cool. It was what we had to do. It's what he thought he needed to calm down and chill a little bit so he could just be the brain and factor out all the other unnecessary bullshit that he was enduring in his life, especially his health.
Let's mention too, he was Pro Wrestling Illustrated Manager of the Year in 72, 76, 89, and 91. He went in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame in 96. He won the Observer's Best Color Commentator Award in 92, 93, and 94. He won the Iron Mike Award from the Cauliflower Alley Club in 04, went in the WWE Hall of Fame in 04, the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in 06, the Lifetime Achievement Award from Pro Wrestling Report in 09, the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2010, the Stanley Weston Award in 2012. We're paying tribute to him today because, unfortunately, and it's a sad anniversary, we lost him 3 years ago today. And when we did, boy, everyone had something to say about their old pal, one of the greatest of all time, Bobby Heenan, on social media. Dave Meltzer said he was the best ever at what he did. Ric Flair said the greatest manager, one of the greatest announcers, and one of the best in-ring performers in the history of the business. Hulk Hogan said, worked with Bobby Heenan from 1980 until my career ended, learned new things from him every single day. Love you, my brother. Rest in peace. And Vince McMahon wrote, one of the greatest managers and announcers in WWE history. Our thoughts are with the Heenan family. How, as you said, you saw Bobby at the tail end of his life when he was not necessarily in the best physical condition, but his spirits were still up. It was a pretty sad day 3 years ago to think that the world lost one of the funniest men ever, Bobby Heenan.
Yeah, it's a day I'm never going to forget. I knew it was inevitable, Conrad, but you can never fully prepare to lose somebody that's special in your life. And without a doubt, in a business that's not known for a long-term, multiple friendships, Bobby was that guy. He never wavered. You know, my wife Jan, he loved Jan, and he came over to when he was in Atlanta, and he and I were in Atlanta together. I just didn't have a job with wrestling. I was doing Falcon football and some sports talk. When I left Vince in March or April or something like that of '94, Bobby had just got, as you mentioned earlier, had just got to Atlanta in January, so he was there a lot, and so was Gene. And I remember us having Bobby and Gene over to our home there in Atlanta on multiple occasions to hang out, tell stories, and eat great food. And Jan loved cooking for those guys. They were part of our family, and they could feel that because of her and her kindness and her warmness and the great food. They both liked Italian food, and Jan, of course, was Italian, and she had those two Italian grandmothers that taught her how to cook when she was a little kid. So they loved her cooking, and we'd tell stories, and we'd smoke a joint or whatever the case may be. And they really wanted me to come back to work at WCW at that time, and because I didn't have a job, I was certainly interested in that. I was going to sign off on that deal. But you know, Eric and I had a meeting or two, and it just wasn't the right fit at that time, and I don't blame Eric for that. You know, it just wasn't. And again, as I said earlier, going to WWF at the time was the best move I've made. Even though I'm sitting there now out of first time in my life I've been fired from a wrestling job, So from 74 to 94, I had a pretty good record of employment. But they'd come over to the house, and of course, Jan was a flight attendant, and so Bobby would, the days before the cell phones, he would call the house, shoot the shit, and she would answer the phone more often than I would, and he would then do a prank. I've seen phone calls. He did them all the time. It's 25D. 25D. That's a seat number. It's 25D. You really look good today, or some shit. Or he'd have better stuff than I got, but he was always, his code name on the phone calls was 25D. So Jan would say, "Honey, it's your friend 25D again." So I knew it was Bobby, but he was just, I can't express enough. You heard what some of these greatest of all time when, Flair, greatest manager, one of the greatest announcers, but one of the best in-ring performers in the history of the business that this generation is not fully aware of. And I just believe that you look at all the skill sets, all the high-level opportunities to play big in a big game. Bobby Heenan never let anybody down. He could shoot angles and sell tickets, whether it be for the Bruiser or Gagne, because Bobby made a bump-taking manager. He made that role more viable than anybody that had preceded him in the history of wrestling. So, in other words, when Bobby was booked into the old deal where, well, if you beat Lanza, you get 5 minutes along with Heenan, that kind of deal, or a tag match. He always delivered in a big way, and he was a better heel as a manager and a / part-time wrestler than I'd say 90% of the guys in the territory.
Right.
And he sold tickets. That's the great mark of being a wrestling villain, that people will actually get off their couch, get in their vehicle, drive to the arena, buy a ticket, and to see this person, Bobby Heenan in this case, get his ass whipped. So great wrestling heels are ones that can motivate the potential ticket buyer to buy a ticket to see you get your ass whipped. And they love that. And Bobby he didn't have a problem getting the color. He added the dramatic aspect of everything because, quite frankly, he had to work hard to do that because he was so damned entertaining.
Right.
But I just don't believe, Conrad, there was ever anybody that I've seen before or since that could do as many things great as Bobby Heenan did, and not just at a small little indie show or whatever. I mean, we talked about this earlier, WrestleMania 3s, all the WrestleManias that he broadcast, the show, the pay-per-views that he broadcast. So broadcasting he aced it. He aced it in the ring. Who was a better manager? There's a lot of great managers, but I will say that nobody was a better manager to my eyes, that I actually got to see than Bobby Heenan. And that covers a lot of ground. So he's just, his legacy will never die. And if you're a wrestler today and you get a chance to go back and watch some of his work, whether as a wrestler, a manager, or a broadcaster, you can learn things. Even if you're a wrestler, you say, well, how would it help me to watch Bobby Heenan as a broadcaster? I'm not going to be a broadcaster. I'm a wrestler, because it's all about timing and logic and pushing the right buttons to elicit the right response, whether you're physical doing it or you're verbally doing it. So anybody that wants to get better in their craft in pro wrestling can certainly do so by watching as much Bobby Heenan as you can, and going back on YouTube or wherever it may be, Conrad, and watching him wrestle, and watch how he got matches over. The idea was to embellish and underscore the proficiencies of the baby faces. In other words, get the baby faces over. And Bobby Heenan, you can pick out any tape randomly, however you want to do it. Any old YouTube video you choose to do, you'll see him doing exactly that each and every time out. So somebody that can do that, to me, he stands above everybody else. Everybody's fighting for second place, so to speak. And that's how I remember Bobby. And I just, all the time, the fun times we had, the peanut butter pie, the waitresses, the flows of the world, come to my home, making people laugh. Just he's a treasure, and I'm very lucky. I wish I'd have known him longer. I wish I could have worked with him longer, but I'm really honored that I got to work with him at all. And it's there. Those months will never be forgotten as long as I'm alive, and until I take that, as he would say, that last dirt nap.
Well, I don't know that we could have done a more fitting tribute today. You can just hear the love and affection and respect coming through on your side. And obviously everyone listening to this grew up with Bobby Heenan, and it's a bit of a sad anniversary, but we wanted to pay tribute to one of the greatest of all time. And we want to hear about your favorite Bobby memory. So if you've got them, shoot them to us at JR Grilling. He is at JR's BBQ, and I am at Hey, it's Conrad. And as a reminder, you can get all these shows early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com. I know Jim mentioned that right at the top. But you've also got some cool deals going on over at jrsbbq.com. Not only can you get the book, Under the Black Hat, which is quickly on everyone's favorite wrestling book list ever, but in addition to that, you're doing personalized autograph, all included in the same price. I think that even includes shipping in the lower 48. It's still grilling season by God, so people are still picking up sauce left and right. You've got the all-purpose seasoning back in, the main event mustard. Things are good over at jrsbbq.com, are they not?
Yeah, they are. We got a good team. Our customer service is a very important element. I don't suggest we have good customer service. I demand that we have good customer service. Doesn't mean we can't make a mistake. We're human. But I can promise you this, we're going to correct any mistake that's made. We use a lot of the U.S. Postal Service for our shipping, and of course we know that's a topic of conversation, a political issue, of course. Can't control that as much as we'd like to, but customer service is number one. The origins of the barbecue sauce, our number one seller is JR's Original, and that came the idea of that came out of my mother's kitchen when I was a kid, and we had that screened in back that door and no air conditioning, so you had a lot of screen doors, and you could smell the sauce simmering on the stove top right through that screen door, and I'll never forget those aromas, and they were just wonderful. So I think we have a good product. People seem to have really started liking it. We have a lot of repeat customers, jrsbbq.com, and I'm thinking very strongly about how we're going to approach the holidays. I think a lot of people are going to be buying a lot of things, Conrad. I know I am, for my family, online.
Right.
It's just, I want to support businesses, but I want to do it in a way that takes me out of the high risk group, where I'm not in a mall shopping, looking around. So I think a lot of people are going to be buying things for their holidays online, and I think we've got a real good plan set up there, and they're in Norman, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate you mentioning it. We appreciate everybody's business. Generally through the week, like on AEW nights, and we always have a sale of some kind just to encourage folks to try it. But the seasoning has become a star. The seasoning's got over, and I like that part of it. So because it's so versatile. And another sleeper for us is our mustard. All good. Chipotle ketchup makes a great steak sauce. You warm it up a little bit. I had some last night on a burger. So I'm a big proponent of these things because it helps perpetuate, Conrad, my memories of my mom and my wife. Simple as that. I'm fully transparent. So to me, it makes me, when I see an order come in, if it's only for one bottle of seasoning, I rejoice. I'm happy because Mom and Jan's work is being played forward. And that's what we're all trying to do more of these days.
Pick it up, try it for yourself. You're going to love it. jrsbbq.com. Next week, we've got another great show planned for you. Of course, as we said, you get them all early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com. Of course, last week we covered Jim Cornette. Today we paid homage to the late great Bobby the Brain Heenan. But coming up next week, and I'm pretty excited about this, we're back on track with Unforgiven 2000. And this is going to be quite the show, man. We haven't really touched on this show before. We have been marching down the year 2000, and Unforgiven 2000 was one of our more requested shows, believe it or not. It went down in Philadelphia, and what a raucous crowd that always is. On top, it's a fatal 4-way with The Rock defending against Chris Benoit, Kane, and The Undertaker. We've also got the blow off, I guess, of Triple H and Kurt Angle in a no DQ match with Mick Foley as a special guest referee. The Intercontinental title will be on the line with Eddie Guerrero and Rikishi. The Hardy Boys will be working with Edge and Christian. Chris Jericho's in there with X-Pac. Steve Blackman is in there with Perry Saturn. Taz is working with Jerry Lawler in a strap match in 2000. And then we've got the Right to Censor taking on the APA and the Dudley Boys. It's an 8-man tag team match. Lots of fun stuff happening here in 2000. And notice, of course, Steve Austin still on the shelf. Unforgiven 2000 coming your way next week. Don't you dare miss it. Until next time, we are at JR Grilling. He is at JR's BBQ, and we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here on Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
A double dose of that mister, buddy.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.